Hi, today I'm going to be talking about projection, which is coping mechanisms adopted by children who grow up in survivalistic environments. I also have a blog article which I've written, and I will post the link below in case you're interested. So, survivalistic environments are usually very harsh, and the focus in these environments is on survival skills, developing them and honing them. And there are usually no opportunities to develop in any other directions. And as a result of this, most children who grow up in these environments lack the ability to regulate their emotions, for instance, because emotional self mastery or emotional regulation is very not prioritized or considered important in these environments most of the time. And as a result of this, what happens is when difficult situations arises in their life and they get triggered, they are not able to process these emotions, and it ends up they end up coming up with coping mechanisms to deal with it. And one of these mechanisms is projection, where they try to project these emotions outside of them to someone else in the same environment. So let's call the person who is projecting these difficult emotions out the projector or the pusher, and the person who is receiving the emotions as the receiver. So the receiver is also a child or some other person who grew up in that particular in a very similar childhood environment. So they also lack the skills to process emotions, right? So what happens is that these emotions get trapped in their body and they can cause mental and physical ailments. So this actually creates a vicious cycle where someone is pushing emotions, the other person is taking emotions, and so on and so forth. It's a lose-lose scenario. Now let's look at an example to see how this works out in real life. Okay, so let's take an example of a work situation where we have three people: person A, person B, and person C. Right? Now, person A is neutral. Let him be the boss, and B be the pusher, the projector, and C be the receiver. Okay. Now, there's a situation at work. Person A calls person B into his office and tells him that he has, done something wrong, or puts him down, basically. Now, person B is carrying all these feelings of unworthiness and even rage, and walks out of the office and finds person C, calmly doing their work. Now, person B, in order to push these emotions out, projects them onto C by probably like putting them down about the work that they are doing, for instance. Now, person C is the one who is experiencing the same emotions that person B was feeling earlier. Now, person B sees this and feels a sense of relief. But this relief is usually short lived because, next time someone else triggers them, these emotions or similar emotions are going to rise up, which they cannot manage, and they end up projecting. So this creates a kind of vicious cycle, right? And these cycles are also intergenerational in nature, in the sense that the the place where these, the environment where projectors and the receivers learn these patterns are in the childhood environment where they grew up, where one of their parents, or more than one of them, one of the parents projected onto them. So this becomes like a vicious intergenerational cycle, which is continues until someone recognizes that this is going on and needs to be broken. But why do projection happen in the first place, right? Like, yeah, these are difficult emotions like anger, hate. I mean, they are kind of like icky and yucky, and yeah, no one wants to feel them. But there is also this misconception that these feelings indicate that you're a bad person. Like if you feel an emotion which is considered to be negative, then you're a negative person or a bad person, and that you need to be fixed. So, for example, if someone projects rage onto you, then and you're feeling a lot of rage, then you feel like, oh my god, something's wrong with me. But the truth is that these emotions, they're only a gateway for us to understand when there is an imbalance happening. So these emotions can happen when there is projection taking place. It can even happening when there is a wounding or trauma, right? But there are also instances when these emotions can be an indication, can occur in healthy situations. For example, if someone is crossing your boundaries and you're feeling very, very angry and you need to put your foot down, that is a very, very normal reaction, right? The only difference is in the first case, the emotions are controlling us, The second case, we are controlling the emotions, or we are like using the emotions in order to guide us in life. And being able to do this is what we call emotional self mastery. But irrespective of anything, our identity or our self worth, it's not defined by emotions or thoughts. It's always fixed. And realizing this is actually the key to healing and getting rid of any residue of shame that people might feel because they are feeling difficult emotions. Now, how do we identify when projection is happening? Right? So for those of those people who identify more as a receiver of emotions as opposed to a pusher, the signs to look for are: number one, you feel like you end up in a lot of situations where you're unjustly accused of certain behaviors or certain actions, and even though you know that it's unjust, you um, you still feel responsible for it. Number two, there are a lot of situations where, say, for example, you walk into a room, you have to speak to someone, and your emotions go a 180. So, for example, one minute you're feeling very angry, and next minute you're feeling very sad, or one minute you're feeling very happy, and next minute you're feeling very angry, or whatever. There's like a 180-degree flip in your emotions, and this usually happens when you talk to certain people. Okay, and this is also an indication that projection is happening. Now, if you resonate with these two, then it's also likely that you can relate this to your childhood, that these patterns have happened in your childhood. Now, if you identify with being a projector or a pusher, then the signs to look for are that: number one, you've been in many situations where you get triggered and you feel these difficult emotions rising up, and generally you end up in a confrontational and usually a confrontational situation with someone else, and that person ends up feeling the same feeling as you do right now, which gives you a sense of relief. But this is not, this is usually short lived, and you know this goes on for, this keeps happening over and over again. Now, you may also feel like this has happened in the past, usually in your childhood. Again, it may even feel like you become one of your parents because all of this started in your childhood environment. So when you identify these signs, if you identify with these signs, then it's highly likely that projection is happening. And if and when you do, the first step is usually to, again, go back and see if, connect it to your childhood and see if it feels similar, and then that's how the healing starts. But remember that, when you come to a space where you realize that projection is happening, that can lead to a lot of difficult emotions, which is independent of projection. So, for example, someone who projects, right, when they realize that, oh, I'm a projector, I'm a pusher of emotions, right, it can result in a kind of shame spiral, feeling like, oh my God, I've been doing this all my life. But remember that you didn't do it consciously, this was passed down to you. And your only responsibility is to heal them. Similarly, if you're a receiver, then you may end up feeling very angry about the fact that you spent a large portion of your life feeling things which are not even yours, and it has led to a lot of issues like maybe physical issues or mental issues. But again, remember that, they didn't do it consciously to you. They also grew up in environments just like yours. So having, or keeping a higher perspective can really help you during this process, because all these extra emotions just add layers and can make healing a little bit more difficult. So anyway, hope this helped. Thank you.